The delivery app domino effect. If there was one thing Domino's built its reputation on, it was mastery over delivery. Through the 1990s and 2000s, no other pizza brand could match its reach. Domino's delivery drivers covered the suburbs like clockwork. Its 30-minute guarantee became legendary, and the pizza tracker turned the ordering process into a digital event. For years, this model felt unbeatable. But in time, technology reframed the rules. A new wave of platforms replaced brand-specific delivery systems with a marketplace model, one where pizza competed directly with hamburgers, sushi, or tacos on a single screen. Domino's hadn't lost its ability to deliver, but the ground beneath it had shifted. The companies that made this possible, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub, weren't built with pizza in mind. Their goal was broader: put any restaurant into a customer's pocket with a few taps. At first, pizza operators dismissed them. After all, delivery was pizza's territory and the product traveled well. But the shift was never about handling pizza. It was about placing every option in the same storefront, the app itself. Suddenly, family dinners were choosing not from Domino's menu, but from a scrolling list of cuisines. The advantage of running a dedicated fleet of drivers, long Domino's crown jewel, looked less distinctive next to a marketplace that offered everything at once. This wasn't the collapse of Domino's delivery engine. It remained one of the strongest logistics operations in food service. What changed was how customers accessed it. If thousands of restaurants share the same apps, the digital storefront becomes the true gatekeeper, whether or not a chain has drivers in every neighborhood. Pizza Today's 2025 industry survey backs that up. Online ordering and delivery platforms now account for a significant and growing share of operator revenue, with many businesses reporting more than 11% of sales flowing through third-party channels. For the younger restaurant crowd, delivery apps became the default, and pizza chains had to follow the traffic. The irony ran deep. For years, Domino's tracker was praised as cutting-edge, showing each step of the order's journey. But when Uber Eats and DoorDash offered similar updates for a range of cuisines, the uniqueness evaporated. To a new generation, Domino's wasn't the face of convenience anymore. It was just one option inside a broader food carousel. Logging into an app that could display sushi, ramen, and pizza in the same cart made Domino's proprietary tracker feel less like a marvel and more like a single-brand relic. Economics made this shift even more complicated. Domino's old system kept the entire chain of value in-house. Their own ingredients, employees, and cars meant most of the money stayed with the company. Third-party apps reversed that arrangement. Platforms typically charged commissions of 15–30% per order. That fee bought exposure to millions of app users, but it also sliced into already slim restaurant margin. Chains wrestled with the decision: protect their own ordering systems or join the apps and forfeit a cut of sales. In practice, refusal became nearly impossible. Without a presence on delivery apps, many brands risked disappearing from the way consumers actually searched for food. Some companies resisted. Domino's offered discounts for customers who ordered directly through its app and promoted loyalty rewards that only applied to in-house purchases. Pizza Hut rolled out platform-exclusive deals, but consumer behavior trended in one direction. People wanted one place where dinner decisions could be made quickly, and that central hub was the delivery app. Once inside the app environment, pizza chains looked like one more tile in a broad menu rather than the default choice for delivery. This trade-off extended beyond economics. For decades, pizza delivery carried strong symbolic branding: drivers in logoed uniforms, pizza boxes that displayed the chain's colors, branded cars parked outside homes. That presence reinforced the company's visibility at the neighborhood level. By contrast, app drivers were independent contractors cycling between multiple restaurants. Instead of a Domino's car pulling up, customers often saw a gray sedan dropping off several bags of mixed orders. Studies have found that this shift came with a measurable downside. Third-party deliveries often score lower on food temperature and satisfaction compared with orders handled by restaurant-employed drivers. The effect was subtle but important. Pizza lost part of its ritual, the warm, branded connection between restaurant and home, replaced by anonymous transactions delivered at scale. Still, app traffic was too big to ignore. Once pizza chains committed to them, order volume surged. Customers could add a pizza to their cart as easily as they added fries or a smoothie. For many small operators, it meant exposure they never could have afforded on their own. But the economic gains were uneven. Selling far more pizzas did not necessarily mean keeping more of the revenue. Many operators described the arrangement as paying rent to a tech company for access to customers they once reached directly. As long as apps ate into margins, growth came with a built-in cost. The pandemic years highlighted this dependency more than anything else. In 2020 and 2021, when millions were confined to their homes, delivery apps became lifelines. Orders spiked to unprecedented levels. Yet with that surge came heavy costs, as every percentage point in commissions translated to millions in revenue transferred upward to the platforms. Pizza volumes exploded, but chains themselves often pocketed less per slice. Apps had shifted roles from useful partners to critical gatekeepers, controlling customer relationships. By 2025, the numbers were decisive. Delivery apps accounted for more than half of chain pizza orders nationwide. Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's remained household names, but they no longer own their delivery systems outright. The market had been reshaped into a shared digital space where brand presence mattered less than visibility inside an app. Convenience for customers expanded dramatically. Dinner could be planned and delivered in minutes across cuisines with just a swipe. The trade-off was that pizza chains lost their grip on both profits and presentation. That doesn't mean the food itself mattered less. If anything, the rise of apps flattened pizza into a category alongside dozens of others, forcing it to compete on price, labeling, and reviews like any other meal. The strength of the old delivery empires wasn't enough to shield them from the new rules of aggregation. Chains had to figure out how to stand out in lists of options rather than on a main street corner. And for many, this raised the question of whether pizza could remain as distinctive as it once was in American dining. But while delivery platforms changed how pizza reached the table, another battleground was quietly intensifying. Away from the apps and drivers, a different form of pizza was gaining new attention, not through storefronts or screens, but through supermarket aisles stacked with boxes customers could take home and bake themselves. Frozen pizza levels up. For decades, frozen pizza was treated like an afterthought, a quick fix that lived at the bottom of a crowded freezer. Brands like Totino's, Tombstone, and Red Baron were ubiquitous, stacked high in supermarkets, offering the same guarantee every time: cheap, fast, and good enough. These boxes were sold as survival food for broke students, midnight snacks, or families stretching a paycheck. Nobody was putting them in the same conversation with restaurant pies. They were utility more than cuisine. But the perception of frozen pizza would not stay frozen forever. Over the past few decades, subtle innovations and shifting habits have transformed it into something far more competitive. In fact, one of the first breakthroughs came long before today's gourmet freezer aisle. In 1995, DiGiorno introduced its famous rising crust pizza, complete with a bold marketing campaign declaring, "It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno." That line became a cultural reference point, and more importantly, it was the first time frozen pizza positioned itself as a direct rival to hot delivery. The crust puffed up in the oven, giving the illusion of freshness rather than the flat, cardboard-like bases people expected. It signaled that frozen could aspire higher than snack food, alongside other innovations like bagel bites or hot pockets, which shot pizza flavors into microwaves across America. It reshaped expectations. Could freezing technology really move pizza past backup dinner status? By the 2010s, the answer was starting to look more like yes. A new wave of branding appeared in the freezer aisle. California Pizza Kitchen brought its sit-down restaurant signature toppings, barbecue chicken, Thai flavors into the grocery store. Other companies leaned on claims like stone-fired or wood-fired, words once reserved for upmarket restaurants. Shoppers began to view certain frozen boxes the way they viewed frozen artisan bread or craft beer six-packs. Not trash food, but something closer to quality, if not equal. A rhetorical question began to take shape in households across America. Could a frozen pie replace a delivery order? And in many cases, convenience, cost, and growing quality made the answer yes. That transformation accelerated during the COVID lockdowns. When restaurants closed and families grew wary of delivery surcharges, frozen pizza quietly surged in status. Freezers weren't stocked with just one or two backup pies anymore. They were packed with unfamiliar labels, cauliflower crust offerings, and even plant-based toppings. Households experimented, discovering brands they'd never bought before. Suddenly, frozen pizza wasn't embarrassing. It was economical, comforting, and reliable during months when everything else, from toilet paper to fresh veggies, was running short. For millions of households, those months reset the hierarchy. Frozen pizza graduated from desperation meal to a primary option. Even before the pandemic, new diets had begun reshaping the category. Gluten-free alternatives that started as niche experiments gained permanent shelf space. Cauliflower crusts moved from boutique health stores to Walmart aisles. Keto-friendly doughs using almond or protein-based flour pushed into the mainstream. And alongside them, plant-based toppings grew just as fast. Beyond Meat and Impossible options slipped onto frozen pies as easily as they had onto burgers. This meant frozen pizza wasn't just meeting cravings, it was accommodating a whole spectrum of dietary trends. Where traditional chains hesitated to tinker with gluten-free equipment or vegan cheese risks, frozen brands had the space to test and sell these experiments at scale. Packaging amplified this modernization. The cheapest pizzas still came in plain boxes with discount fonts, but premium competitors leaned heavily on slick branding, craft fonts, sharper photography, claims of regional authenticity. The freezer aisle became a showroom of style as much as substance. Buying a pizza that promised a hand-stretched sourdough crust suddenly didn't feel like buying basic groceries. It felt aspirational, like bringing home a restaurant trend in miniature. Consumers posted grocery hauls online, showing off frozen pizzas alongside kombucha or specialty chips. Image mattered, and this was a sea change for a category once defined by whatever fits in the college mini fridge. The product itself also improved. Advances in flash freezing techniques solved the Achilles heel of crumbly or soggy crusts. Cheese blends froze and reheated more smoothly, bubbling instead of congealing. New oven instructions emphasized crispness, and alternative heating methods, air fryers, toaster ovens, gave buyers ways to elevate the results further. A frozen pie came much closer to resembling a takeout one, not identical, but close enough for the average family dinner. Quality narrowed the gap, economics widened it. Why pay $30 for a delivery order when a $7 or $8 frozen pizza could satisfy a similar craving? That cost-benefit equation hooked consumers long after pandemic panic orders subsided. The evolution wasn't only about health trends or nostalgia. It was also about variety. Regional styles, Detroit-style pans, Sicilian slabs, Roman rectangles, migrated into frozen aisles. Thick crusts with caramelized edges or layered cheese patterns were suddenly available in small towns that once had only pepperoni or sausage. Frozen categories became conduits for culinary tourism. Shoppers in suburban Ohio or rural Texas could casually experience New York thin crust or Midwestern tavern styles without a road trip. This access democratized what used to be geographically exclusive. And size mattered too. Where delivery chains stuck with large pies designed for sharing, frozen brands offered flexibility. Smaller, personal-sized pizzas made midweek lunches easier. 2 packs let couples enjoy different flavor combinations without a price premium. Families could mix and match. 1 cauliflower-based veggie pizza for the health-minded teen, 1 indulgent meat lovers for the parent, all baked on the same night. Frozen pizza became modular, a customizable dinner kit, not just a one-size-fits-all pie. Economics reinforced the shift. Grocery shopping already felt like an investment toward household stability. Adding frozen pizzas to the cart gave families the comfort of knowing dinner was solved without the uncertainty of delivery times, tips, or hidden fees. Pizza Today and Statista surveys highlight just how big the shift has grown. Frozen pizza now commands billions in retail sales annually, with industry leaders like Di Giorno and Red Baron among the top sellers nationwide. What once looked like a cheap substitute developed into one of the biggest segments of America's pizza economy. Companies responded by blurring the line between bargain and luxury even further. Di Giorno leaned into indulgent bakery-style crusts and layered toppings beyond pepperoni. Freshness pushed higher quality ingredients with stone-fired authenticity. Store brands launched gourmet knockoffs, offering fancy-styled pies for half the price of competitors. The competition made the frozen aisle one of the most dynamic areas of the supermarket. In this section of the grocery store, innovation moved just as fast as in restaurant kitchens. By 2025, the perception gap between frozen pizza and delivery had shrunk to its smallest point ever. For households on a budget, the logic was obvious. But even households that could afford delivery often stocked their freezers anyway. Frozen pizzas weren't backup, they were staple. They carried the flexibility of dietary choices, the savings of cooked-at-home ingredients, and the surprising satisfaction of quality improvement. Could a Di Giorno rising crust or a plant-based Detroit-style pan pizza rival a delivered pie? For many, the answer became yes. That shift leaves us with an ironic truth. The frozen aisle, once mocked as the lowest common denominator of pizza, has turned into one of the most compelling battlefields in modern food. It absorbs health trends, experiments with regional authenticity, and offers kitchen counter luxury at a fraction of the cost. The stigma has faded, replaced with curiosity and even enthusiasm. The freezer became a frontline in the pizza wars, quietly reshaping how Americans defined what pizza could be. And yet, the freezer aisle's rise didn't happen in isolation. It collided with another massive upheaval that reshaped the pizza business at the exact same time. A disruption so sudden it pushed pizza into both its greatest boom and one of its toughest reckoning. COVID-19, the pizza boom and bust. COVID made pizza both essential and unequal. Chain and frozen sales surged, but independent sit-down pizzerias struggled. When lockdowns began in early 2020, pizza's structure as a portable, affordable, and family-friendly meal made it a natural fit for quarantine life. Delivery adapted with speed. Frozen pizzas filled carts in supermarkets, and together they created one of the food industry's most striking booms during the crisis. Yet that very success masked harsh divides. Major chains and frozen brands thrived, while many neighborhood pizzerias shuttered for good. The surge was immediate. Chains like Domino, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's didn't need to rebuild their business model when dining rooms closed, because off-premise orders were already their backbone. With simple adjustments like contactless drop-offs, they continued to move staggering volumes of food. Industry data collected at the time confirms this. Frozen pizza sales spiked by double digits, and delivery volumes soared as families relied on takeout several nights a week. These categories grew not just as a convenience, but as a defense against uncertainty. Pizza was predictable when so much else was. Supermarkets, too, turned into battle zones for frozen boxes. Freezer aisles were picked bare by anxious shoppers, and brands like Di Giorno and Red Baron hit record sales. Frozen pizza suddenly became central to weekly meal planning. Parents working at home found that heating one during a meeting break was easier than preparing full meals. College students sent back home-supplied siblings and parents with 2 or 3 boxes at a time. For millions, frozen pizza was no longer filler food. It became a household staple. National surveys after 2020 show that many of those buying patterns stuck, with frozen pies remaining a regular grocery item long after restrictions eased. But the same comfort that buoyed chains and frozen giants left small pizzerias with dine-in formats exposed. Independent restaurants built around atmosphere, brick ovens, communal tables, late-night service, struggled to rewire their operations overnight. Without fleets of drivers or partnerships with tech platforms, many could not move quickly enough to stay viable. Industry analysis shows that closures disproportionately hit small operators who lacked delivery infrastructure, eroding local dining cultures even as pizza consumption overall rose. Consumer behavior shifted at a scale that might have taken years under normal circumstances. Delivery apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats went from optional tools to default gateways. Families who once clipped coupons and phoned in weekly orders abandoned paper menus for digital feeds that consolidated every local option. Even when restaurants reopened, those app habits proved sticky. Surveys tracked in 2021 and 2022 confirmed that a large share of customers who adopted third-party apps during COVID continued to use them as their primary ordering method, despite restaurants preferring direct calls. Loyalty, once anchored to specific pizzerias, began to shift toward the convenience of platforms. Frozen pizza loyalty shifted too. Households discovered varieties they hadn't tried before: cauliflower crusts, regional Detroit pan pies, or plant-based toppings, and many never went back. Manufacturers quickly increased production and expanded offerings, turning pandemic discoveries into permanent product lines. By late 2021, premium frozen pizza was not a passing lockdown trend, but an established grocery category. Consumers who might have once dismissed frozen as second-rate came to rely on it alongside delivery for meals they could count on in uncertain times. Behind these numbers was an emotional current that carried just as much weight. Pizza functioned as comfort food during isolation. Families replaced birthdays and sporting events with pizza nights that maintained a sense of ritual when routines were fractured. Convenient slices helped reduce the stress of constant home cooking. And unlike elaborate home-baked projects that dominated social media feeds, pizza was indulgence without effort. It didn't break quarantine rules, required little preparation, and felt entirely normal at a moment when almost nothing else did. Still, that boom had a cost. Independent sit-down restaurants, many of them anchors of their communities, often closed permanently. Without the ability to scale into app-based delivery quickly or compete with frozen brands surging through supermarket distribution, their business models proved too rigid in the face of crisis. What the headlines celebrated, record chain profits, historic frozen aisle sales, was built upon an uneven outcome that hollowed out parts of the pizza economy. Looking forward from 2020, the consequences stayed locked in. Expectations for pizza shifted in ways that are unlikely to be reversed. Consumers learned to treat delivery apps as the default, and those platforms cemented their role in how food transactions take place. Frozen pizza gained legitimacy, with billions in retail sales and ongoing adoption across demographics. Chains strengthened their identities as logistics businesses more than restaurants. Meanwhile, sit-down pizzerias now struggled to portray themselves as essential, unless they added fresh angles that separated them from frozen and platform-driven convenience. The pandemic, in short, accelerated transitions that were already underway but might have taken another decade to fully mature. Delivery dominance pushed by apps solidified. Frozen pizza graduated from backup plan to mainstream. Chains deepened their strength, while independents that couldn't adapt thinned out. Instead of weakening the broader pizza industry, COVID clarified which models worked and which couldn't endure stress tests. By 2025, customers expected all pizza to be available digitally, quickly, and in multiple formats, from app-delivered boxes to freezer-ready meals. They no longer viewed dine-in pizza parlors as central to the culture. For consumers, the comfort food role of pizza stayed unshaken, but the business foundation had permanently changed. COVID forced both chains and shoppers to recalibrate in ways that proved lasting. The result was not just resilience, but reinvention. Pizza didn't just weather the pandemic, it emerged tied to new habits and new standards. Those shifts rippled outward, creating an opening for smaller players to find relevance again, not with delivery fleets or freezer cases, but with something the big chains couldn't copy: a renewed appetite for craft and distinct regional identity. Artisan and regional styles take over. Regional pizza styles, Detroit, Roman, Grandma, New Haven, went from local oddities to national trends. What once felt like insider knowledge for food tourists or hometown regulars is now standard fare in major cities across the U.S. by 2025. Pizza Today confirmed this shift, listing Detroit, New York, Sicilian, Grandma, and Roman as the top trending styles across independent operators. Styles that once lived in neighborhood bakeries, church basements, or regional dives now compete head-to-head with the long-standing big pies from national chains. Detroit style might be the clearest symbol of this revival. Baked in deep steel pans that once held auto parts, this thick, rectangular pizza gained recognition not for tradition alone, but for its striking look. Caramelized cheese lining the edges, pulling into sharp corners, and a crust that photographs in high definition. When Instagram culture demanded pizzas with drama, Detroit delivered the perfect image. The result was quick expansion from Michigan into cities like Lowe's, Angels, and Dallas, where steel pan pizzerias became hip destinations. What had been night shift fare in Detroit factories evolved into stylish food hall anchors and artisan shop menu leaders. Roman al taglio followed a different path. Served as long sheet pan slabs cut with scissors and sold by weight in Italy, it became popular in the US because it fit fast casual expectations without sacrificing novelty. Customers could pick different sections, compare toppings with friends, and share as if it were a tasting menu. Its straight, geometric format looked and felt different from circular pies, reinforcing the idea that pizza could still surprise. Food markets and urban bakeries adopted this style, marketing it as a balance between authenticity and convenience. The Grandma Pie, once a homegrown Long Island pan recipe, also scaled fast. Its thin yet crunchy square base and simple tomato-forward toppings carried a reputation of rustic honesty. In a market where customers grew weary of overstuffed crust gimmicks, the understated approach became a strength. The homemade aesthetic was easy to brand as authentic cooking, a welcome contrast to factory-made uniform delivery rounds. These pies became shorthand for heritage in places far from New York, with independent shops leaning on nostalgia to claim tradition. Even for diners experiencing the style for the first time, the appeal wasn't just visual or structural, it was cultural. In an era of food culture defined by authenticity and narratives, these regional pizzas delivered exactly that. Detroit connected to work culture in post-war Michigan, Roman slices tied to European travel memories, and grandma pies to Italian-American home kitchens. Customers might never have lived those histories, but ordering these styles felt like tasting heritage. Pizza moved from being a generic comfort food to a canvas for cultural storytelling. At the same time, operators leaned heavily on the artisan toolkit. Long fermentation times, naturally leavened dough, and wood-fired ovens became common talking points on menus. Even if customers didn't fully understand the details, phrases like heritage grains and 24-hour ferment reinforced the message that this was craft, not chain food. Just as craft beer and specialty coffee had trained audiences to value origin and process, artisan pizza proved customers wanted similar distinctions in their slices. The artisan framing also created distance from the industrial sameness of national chains, promising a more personal experience. Independent pizzerias in cities highlighted this strategy. Portland shops emphasized sourdough crusts charred in wood ovens. In Austin, Detroit squares were paired with toppings that reflected local barbecue culture. In Miami, bakeries turned grandma pies into corner store essentials. Each case illustrated how regional styles adapted to local tastes while still appearing distinct from the predictable choices of chain. Food tourism amplified the cycle, as traveling diners captured and shared posts of must-try local pizzerias, driving nationwide awareness of styles once unknown outside their regions of origin. The artistry spread into toppings and sauces as well. Vodka sauce bases, roasted pepper purees, and basil pestos joined classic tomato. Cheese blends stretched beyond mozzarella to incorporate pecorino, gorgonzola, or vegan cashew mixes. Toppings veered experimental, from clams to pickled vegetables to hot honey drizzles. These options reinforced the notion that artisan and regional pies were about breaking monotony. Refusing to center pepperoni or cheese wasn't a weakness. It was a sign of creative independence. By 2025, the impact could be measured. Research showed that nearly half of new independent pizzerias identified themselves as regional or craft-focused. They weren't all baking in wood-fired ovens or hand-mixing dough, but they understood the marketplace. To succeed, a pizza shop needed more than a generic menu. It needed a narrative tied to place, craft, or heritage. Without one, visibility dropped in a landscape where distinctions became selling points. That commercial consequence made style as important as flavor. For big chains, this created an obvious problem. Their scale and efficiency depended on uniformity, centralized dough preparation, conveyor belt ovens, and repeatable menus. Scaling something like naturally leavened dough or square steel pan pizza to thousands of outlets clashed with that model. Even when chains tried, the results often looked like imitations, stripped of the authenticity independence promoted. As a result, independents seized cultural status, framing themselves as the real innovators while chains continued competing on price, deals, and distribution. This difference captured the split reality of pizza by the mid-2020s. For mass appeal and volume, chains and frozen aisles still dominated. But for cultural capital, identity, credibility, and trendsetting, independents led. Their uptake of regional and artisan styles defined what was exciting about pizza, even if they didn't sell the overwhelming majority of pies. Customers chasing heritage, artistry, or novelty gravitated to their shops, knowing that chains couldn't replicate the experience authentically at scale. By spotlighting heritage styles while applying artisan techniques, independents put themselves at the forefront of pizza creativity. They took meaningful risks chains avoided and turned those risks into national conversations. And as new styles found audiences in unexpected places, it became clear that pizza was no longer bound by a uniform definition. What once seemed like fringe curiosities were now benchmarks for relevance in the industry.